Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Children First Family Law Podcast. I'm glad you're with us. Today, you're stuck with just me. I'm going to be talking with you about one of the most important tools for helping children thrive after separation or divorce. And that is this: creating a parenting plan that is child-centered, practical, and peaceful. This episode draws on my years of experience as a family law attorney, my extensive training, and a wide range of research into what truly serves the best interests of children. Now, keep in mind, not one set of rules and plans fits every single child and every single family, but hopefully this will give you a lot of things to think about. We are going to explore how to create clarity and predictability in your plan, how to share decision-making without endless conflict, the most effective parenting time structures for different ages, how to handle holidays, vacations, new partners, and transitions, and how to keep your children emotionally safe no matter how hard things feel in the moment. Now, that is a lot of content. So a lot of this could be fodder for many, many different episodes, but I'm going to try to give those of you who are interested in getting this kind of overview of all of these things enough information to give you some things to think about as you create your parenting plans. By the end, you will have a blueprint for a plan that actually works, one that helps both parents move forward and lets your children feel secure, loved, and free, hopefully, to be just kids, not have their whole narrative be that they're kids of divorce. Next, I want to talk with you about part 3, which is parenting time models. There is no single right schedule for your parenting plan. Really, it's only what fits your family's rhythm, geography, and the child's developmental stage that we just talked about. Some common frameworks to consider are things like this. One, I would say week on, week off. I already talked about that. 7-7, simple, fewer transitions, best for older kids. Next, we have the 5-2-2-5. Again, that's equal time, consistent weekdays. That's helpful for parents to know you always have Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, Thursday. That helps for planning. It helps for dating. It helps for joining different things that you might want to do that meet on a consistent day of the week. And it's great for school-aged children. It gives for the younger kids a lot of transitions where they get to see parents frequently, so you don't have to go too long, but it also gives these nice 5-day, every other weekend time to get a little bit more extensive periods with your children. The 4-3-3-4 is also frequent contact and gives you a balanced structure. And then the 2-2-3 is ideal for younger children with short separations and a predictable pattern. Another one to consider is alternating weekends and a midweek visit. So frequently, especially when we have one parent who is really going to handle kind of more of the primary school time for the children, or when parents live further apart or have really demanding jobs, particularly one parent having a really demanding job outside of the parenting role, we often do an every other weekend where that parent will pick up either on a Thursday after school or a Friday after school, where you'll do the exchange at that time. And then either Sunday evening, they will go back to the other parent, or depending on the geography and how the kids are doing, that parent who had the weekend will drop the children at school on Monday. When we do that every other weekend, especially if it's just Friday to Sunday, then we often do a midweek visit on the off week so that you don't go 10 or so days without seeing your children. Again, the selection should be fairly consistent. On every other week, then you'd be having maybe a Tuesday evening. Oftentimes, children, the midweek would actually be Wednesday. Sometimes that conflicts with church events and things like that, sports events that can occur that a lot of those seem to fall on Wednesdays. So just be cognizant of what your children want to be involved in and try to help them not miss things that are important to them, more important to the other parent. But sometimes just getting together right after school, or maybe 4:30 until about 6:30 or so, is a good way to see your children in that time. And then the other option people try, especially in the beginning, and I did an entire podcast on this just recently, it might have even dropped last week, which is nesting. Some people call it bird nesting, where the child stays in the home and parents rotate in and out. That's usually just temporary, but that is something that you can consider trying. And you can try it on any of the schedules I just mentioned. So the children can stay in the home and the parents can come in on a 5-2-2-5 or a 4-3-3-4 or whatever. Again, go Google parenting time schedules. There are also some nice, different states have different developmental stage documents. I think Arizona has one that says, here's what you should think about regarding children and parenting time. You could run this through ChatGPT and maybe get some good information and just really try to be open and also try to be flexible if it's not working, that you will agree to try to change it. Choose again based on your children's needs, the distance between homes, and each parent's schedule. The simpler and more consistent the plan, the easier it is for kids to understand and adjust to. I will say, generally, as well, most kids stay on the same schedule. It gets very complicated to move children onto different schedules, meaning one child has a schedule that's different than the other. But depending on your family's ages of children and stages and things going on, every once in a while, it makes sense to have kids not necessarily always on the exact same schedule. That's a pretty rare situation, but it might work, for example, if the kids are really different in age or if one child has significant special needs versus the other. Those are all very special situations to consider. I want to talk to you about is decision making responsibilities. We'll have to do an entirely separate episode or series of episodes on this, but a well designed parenting plan needs to define who makes which decisions. And this is generally involving major decisions because without that clarity, you're going to have fighting and that can cause disagreements that will spiral. For many states, and I will speak with authority regarding Colorado, we have these categories. We have education and health, and then we have extracurricular activities. Those are the main ones. Now, religion is one that in many states is a category of decision making that gets assigned, but with the ability for parents to choose their own religion, which is really a fundamental constitutional right in the US Constitution, many states have been moving away from one parent holding all of the religious decision making. What I'm seeing more frequently in Colorado, it's defined by case law that has been handled on an appellate level by the courts. What we often see is that the parents can each expose the child to whatever religious activities or practices that parent wants to expose the child to without permission of the other parent. But sometimes we'll have for major events in a religion, it needs to be a joint decision or decided by the court. So, can a child be baptized, for example? At what point can the child make that decision? Can a child go to some special event regarding a religion that would have some practices involved that would involve some type of commitment or something like that? So, this is a touchy area and one that I think you want, especially if you have different religions in your family, you want to really handle carefully. But I think the days of just religion being assigned in many states are bygone. It's something that there's a lot of fluidity around in terms of what individuals want to teach their children. And that goes along with the fundamental right to be a parent. And so there are really good, important reasons why we are allowing parents to expose their children to their own religious practices. Now, education involves primarily what school is the child or children going to go to? Or is a child going to be allowed to change schools? Or are you going to homeschool? Um, some people think it extends to, are we going to get tutoring? What classes can a child take in school? But those can be things that maybe might not fall into major decision making. The big one is, and that can be a big fight between parents. Hopefully parents are getting along on those things, but generally where kids are going to school, is a kid going to be on an individualized education plan? What kind of special education are they going to get? Is a particular school desirable? Do we want to move this child to a gifted program or do we want to hold this child back, move this child along? These are all major decision making regarding education. Health involves medical care. It also involves mental health, therapy, treatment. And I've seen a lot of big fights, well, on the education front as well. But we have some crossover that occurs between education and health, particularly during COVID. We had that. And so sometimes they're not exactly clean categories. So, for example, is getting vaccinated and educate if it's required by the school, but you can opt out of it. Is that a medical decision or an education decision? Those are things that sometimes can cross over a little bit. Medical care in terms of urgent care is not a major decision because either parent can get the child urgent medical care. Of course, it's best practice to communicate with your co-parent about that and try to make decisions together. But if there isn't time to do that or it's not practical, then certainly any urgent need could be handled without that being a major decision. Same with if a child is sick, even though that might not seem urgent, you could take the child to the doctor and things like that. But ongoing therapy, big decisions about whether, let's say a kid has scoliosis or something. Should we let that child get the kind of surgery that one parent might object to? Those are all major decisions. The other is extracurricular activities. This can also cause so much fighting. One parent might want to do excessive amounts of extracurricular activities, and the other might want far fewer extracurricular activities.